What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Glad you all are on with us tonight. Tonight is another episode of Conversation with the Covenant Brothers. I am Derek McGee. I pastor the Great Church, a Bible-based church, and I am privileged tonight to be able to host this conversation with my dear brothers and my dear friends. I'm so excited for our chance to fellowship together. Tonight's show is going to be a little bit different. I will give you more about that here in a few moments. But let me bring in each of my brothers tonight, one by one. First and foremost, we have Pastor Richard Ash II. He is the pastor of the Net Church here in there in Quincy, Florida. Ash, what's going on, bro?
Man, I'm good, man. How everything going tonight?
All is well, brother. Good to have you on tonight, man.
I'm glad to be here, man. Glad to be here. Definitely.
Amen. Next up, we're going to bring in Pastor Roosevelt Rogers III, who is the pastor of Old Jerusalem Missionary Baptist Church there in Havana, Florida. Brother screen is sideways, but we can still hear his voice. What's up, bro?
Everything good, man. How's it going?
I'm doing well, man. You really are sideways on
I
camera.
know, man. I'm sideways right now, man.
It's all right. Hey, man, you know Jesus saves, brother. You can
I
turn your
know,
life
man.
right side up.
You turn your life around, man. Everything
You
good.
sure can. Why don't you try them for yourself, brother? Try them for yourself.
I know, man. I'm probably gonna log out and log back in, man.
It's all good. Next up is our brother, Dr. Bernard E. Hudson of the Arnett Chapel AME Church there in Quincy, Florida. B, what's going on, bro?
Not much. Glad to be here. Glad to have this conversation. I've been looking forward to it.
Amen, brother. Thank you for being on, man. And then last of our covenant brothers is Pastor Julius R. Harris of the New Jerusalem Missionary Baptist Church there in Havana, Florida. What's going on with you, Jay?
Brothers, what's going on, man? Good to see y'all tonight, man. Looking
You
forward to
too,
the
man. Good
conversation.
to see
Yes, sir.
good to see all your brothers tonight, man. We're gonna have an amazing show tonight, a great conversation. Ro will get back on here shortly. So at the beginning of the show, when I first opened up, I said to the viewing audience, tonight's show is gonna be a little bit differently. So typically on our show, we have a topic, and then we have some scripted questions to start out, and it goes into free flow. Tonight's going to be different. There are no scripted questions. Tonight, we're going to have a top conversation about purging our hearts and minds, what's burdening you. And so we're going to talk openly tonight. We're going to each share the things that really are pressing upon our hearts as pastors, as men, whatever it may be. And so free flowing conversation. We are real friends. We are real brothers. We spend a lot of time together. We do a lot of talking together in text in that regard. So tonight we're going to just have an open, honest conversation about what's burdening us, whether it be in the church, whether it be in our community, whether it be in the world. That's how it's going to end up being. And so I'm excited about that. Let me also just remind you who are viewing audience that the chats are live, so you're encouraged and welcome to put anything in the chat you want to. We do screen it before we post it to make sure everything is appropriate for this audience. We are broadcasting live on all of our Facebook pages, as well as my church Facebook page. We're live on YouTube, both my personal and our church YouTube page, and we're broadcasting live on LinkedIn. And so the Lord has blessed us tremendously to be able to have viewing audiences from all of those platforms. So tonight, we thank you for being a part of our conversation. Do us a favor and share this on your pages. Text people, ask them to log in and be a part of this conversation. We're just five dudes who love Jesus, love our wives, love our families, and love to have good conversation. And so let's jump right in. Purging our hearts and minds. What's burdening you? I'm gonna go with you first, B. Anything, man, that you talk. What's on your heart, man? What's on your mind?
So I thought a lot about this question and kind of where we would go, and I think it goes back to probably some of the previous sessions that we've had, and I think when we talk about what's burdening me, I'm gonna go to it. What I think is a big deal for Black men in general,
Mm,
and I think it is uh, the stress of performing. And so what I mean by that is when I'm talking about what who we are and what we are to all the people and all the capacities that we happen to function in or operate in. So when you talk about the family, I think it's a big stress to think about being able to provide for your family, being the man that you want to be for your family in this day and age that we live in, where we're probably making more money than we've ever made before. So there are new ways to be able to try to provide for your family. But it can be a lot at times, saving your dignity, saving faith, saving who you are, but being able to provide for your family. But not only for the family, but also in our roles as pastors, that need to be able to be what the members need when they call on you. And so I would say that from a standpoint of feeling like there's a heavy weight to carry, I would say it would be that need to perform. And I know that sounds crazy, and I know we should be beyond that, but it's a reality. And no matter how much you try to fight it, sometimes it keeps creeping back into your mind. How do I be what everybody who needs me? How do I be that when they need that? So I would think that that would be a place where I would start when we talk about what's burdening me, what's on my heart and my mind.
So B, since you brought that up, man, let's press that a little bit. So how do you deal with it, and how would you advise men to deal with it?
So I would say it's something I'm still still working myself through it, because it can be difficult at times, because naturally by nature being, and so this whole pastoral role is a role about, it's a caregiver's role. And I don't think people see it that way, but really who we are spiritual caregivers. And so when you think about that role, and so you try to be that at home. So you want everything to be right for your family. And when it's wrong, you feel it's your role to be able to fix those things that are wrong, no matter who they are, no matter how hard it may seem. And sometimes you may know there's nothing you can do, and there's nothing worse than wanting to fix something for somebody, and you have no power to be able to fix those things. And so I would say it's difficult, but it's something you have to work through, and you have to know what your limitations are. You have to know when you've reached the point where there's nothing you can do about it. So sometimes then it's just about being present in that moment. It's about being with those people who you feel need you the most. And on that church level, it goes that way as well. And I think we mentioned one time, we were talking about how losing a member, and if you're truly doing your pastoral role correctly, it hurts you just like that was a member of your family when you lose that person. And so now you're suffering with the grief, but you also feel that need to be what those people who were left behind need. And so it is difficult. It takes a lot of prayer, and I have to admit that I don't have the perfect answer. It's something that I'm trying my best to work through myself. And sometimes I have to remind myself, okay, I've reached my the length of my ability to be able to do something, and now I have to lean to God and let God show me what needs to be done. And I know that sounds backward. I'm just telling you how my mind's kind of works when I'm thinking about those things.
Well, I appreciate that, man. I absolutely appreciate that. Let me bring you in, Ash, man. What's on your heart, man? What's on your mind?
What's on my mind and heart right now is, man, our young men. How it seems so easily for them now to just throw their lives away. They're either taking lives or I mean it's like it's nothing now. It's no value. Sometimes it's seen to the young black male, our sons and nephews and all of that, as a village, as a family, to see our sons and nephews, them just just crash out over nothing. I mean, I absolutely, when it boiled down to it, it's absolutely nothing, and lives are ruined on both sides. The gun violence and the murders and those things. You have a family who lost someone, and also the other family, you're gonna lose somebody too. And so it's a no win over not defending your family or anything, but over this things that absolutely, when you boil down to it, means nothing. And you can see it happening not just over on a national level. They just had another young rapper. You would think you start making money, that you'll start leaving certain things behind, but now we done got to the point where we're trying to keep this rep going.
Yeah.
And you locked up, but you got plenty of money, which you would think that I got out of certain situation, but I think it's the lack of leadership in our homes when it comes to our sons and nephews to see something different. We want to be something different. Don't get me wrong, not all are doing that, but that's just what burdened me now because it's playing out like every day. You know what I'm saying? Every day in our cities or wherever you're living at, it's playing out every day, and we're losing those future husbands and those future community leaders and those future pastors, and we're losing them, you know, to the violence of the streets. And everybody thinks it's all fun and games until a judge tell you that you sentence you to life and you're never going to see the streets again.
Yeah, bro.
And it may sound like it ain't nothing now, but 20 years from now, whatever, when mom has died and people in your family have gone and you can't even make the funeral, then it starts to sink in. You guys who have done that is sitting in prison for life now. It's like we really hit reality was when everything else continued to move on, but I'm stuck here.
Yeah.
So that's what's burdening me right now.
Man, I love that. I love that. What about you, Jay?
Oh man, just great stuff, bro. I got some of the same stuff down too. But I'll just start here, man. Just having a pastor's heart. One thing that's a burden on my heart now, man, is I guess it seems to be no urgency for people to live for the Lord, bro. I mean, it's just I think there's a vast amount of people who only see God as somebody you call when you're in trouble. And so we run to God when we run to the church when there's a crisis. We run to God when there's trouble. But when the trouble and the crisis is over, man, we right back to living like clowns, bro. And so the burden for me as a spiritual leader, how do I get people to fully commit their lives to the Lord, man? Even with what Ash was just talking about, what B was talking about, man, I think if people had a serious and sincere relationship with the Lord, man, it'll help men become better fathers. It'll help issues within our communities. And first, I understand too. I want to say this. I understand that I got to be the example. And as Bernard was saying, man, that's a whole burden right there. You know, I mean, being called by God to do this, man, it's exciting and troubling all at the same time. And sometimes, and I know we don't talk about this a lot, but sometimes being an example is not even enough. Because watch this, you can be an example, you can be faithful, you can be committed, and people will ignore it, man, like it don't mean nothing. So they'll still choose to do what they want to do. They'll still choose to live like they want to live. And so I've been just kind of teaching through commitment. I've been out the last 2 weeks, but I'll be back next week. But before I stop, I was teaching about and preaching commitment. So just trying to do that. And so commitment is, and I learned this from Black. I do it even when I don't feel like it.
Yes, sir.
And so, and I've been just trying to convey this to our congregation that we got to be committed to Christ, man, because Christ has been committed to us. So just trying to, that's a burden for me, man, to try and get folks to commit to the Lord.
I love that. I love that. What about you, Ro?
Man, I think two things that I would say. The first thing, man, is what burdens me is the fractured church. And what I mean by that is this battle between being a Black preacher and wanting to say what we want to say, but realizing we can't say what our white evangelicals say. Because we become viewed as angry Black men, as opposed to trying to speak truth to power to our congregants. And so, man, that's a real struggle to me, man. And it was a trigger this week, man. I forgot who sent it, man, but when y'all sent that, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but when y'all sent that with Donnie Swaggart, man, and a white man rebuking the black church
Yeah.
when they are doing the identical thing.
Yeah.
When some years ago, Rod partially stood up and said, you know, this is who we gonna support and we gonna get behind him. But because we choose to do similar, man, we're demonized. And then, man, you know, sometime, and I'm just saying, like, sometime, man, I wish we weren't streaming live, because sometimes there are things that we want to speak intimately to our congregants, but then we feel there's going to be repercussion because somebody going to take a 30-second soundbite.
That's it.
And make it out of something and not take it into context. So that's one that's burden my heart, man. And then the other one, man, is, man, we've really got to figure out how do we deal with this mental health crisis within our churches.
There it is.
You know what I'm saying? Because everything ain't oil ain't gonna cure everything. Let me just say that. You know, and we've got to figure out how we stop demonizing people that are struggling with mental health issues, and realizing that as the church, we can't fix it all, but we've got to figure out how to direct them in the right path. So those are two areas, man, that really weigh heavy on my heart in these days.
Yeah, so I'll again, for our viewing audience, thank you for being on with us and rocking with us. The chats are live. We encourage you to share your thoughts in the chats. If you have a question, you can put that there. We'll grab it towards the latter part of the show. But we so appreciate you for being a part of our show tonight. One of the things that really burns me is where you left off at, Ro, which is mental health. We're seeing it the more, man, and you know it burdens me tremendously because you know it is not something that's talked about a great deal, and we're seeing it now happening as our kids are getting younger and younger, right? And some of that mental health leads to some kids feeling very suicidal, and that's a burden for me as a former youth pastor, as a pastor who's blessed to have a lot of youth at his church. I try my best, as well as our youth leaders, to spend a lot of time with our youth, but you also still know, man, that you can't shelter them from everything they're going to go through, right? That you still compete with the influence of their classmates. And there is a fear and a burden that these young people carry of trying to fit in, trying to be accepted. And that becomes mental, right? That becomes a great challenge. When we were growing up, man, you know, we sound like the old man right now, but when we were growing up, right, you know, you may have an issue with somebody at the school, but you may not see them until the next day, right? These kids, they go home and now they got to deal with that same person sometimes through social media, through text, through everything else, man. So you literally are inundated by that. And it really weighs on me as a father of a son that's a freshman in college and a father of a daughter that's in high school. You know, two different experiences in high school thus far. But when I listen to my daughter, we talk, and I pick her from school and we talk, and she shared her day, and I hear some things that are transpiring at school and some of the things that they, you know, just try to get through each day, man. I'm floored by some of the mental toil, right? And it's not the academics, right? That sometimes becomes the easiest thing they deal with. Is that the greater burden for me, man, that's burdening my heart, is watching the body of Christ as it relates to the fear of the what if. What if Trump wins on the 5th, right? What if this occurs? Just, and it leads me to wonder at times, whether it's political, whether it's just life circumstance, left me to wonder sometimes if we are pastoring and preaching to people who really don't believe the text, right? That out of routine, we come to church, but we actually don't believe what the word of God says. I keep saying this to my congregation. What is prayer without expectations, right? When you go to God in prayer, do you actually expect God to hear your prayer? You can't force God to respond, but there ought to be an expectation that, God, I know that you're able to do it. If you choose not to do it, that's your will and that's your prerogative. But I have an expectation, and I feel whether it's today's dogmatic teaching, right, of name it and claim it and things of that nature, or people just don't really believe the word of God is true. I feel like COVID has really exposed a lot in the church, and so it's a burden about that. I used to, being very transparent, I used to pray fervently that God would give me wall-to-wall members, that we would basically have more people than we have chairs. I used to pray that. And I went through a major season many years ago of ministry comparison, where I would log on to certain churches and look at who they had in there, people they had. And when you, if you do that, man, if you're not careful, you start comparing how you preach to that person, how they have more than you have, and it becomes intoxicating to you, and also becomes toxic overall. But as the Lord has grown us, man, in an amazing way, I'm grateful for it. But I'm also realizing in simple conversation that length of years in membership don't equate to length of years in growth, right? So it's a real burden of mine to realize that we're not careful, man. We can pastor people who have a tolerance for appetizers but not full meals. And that's one thing that happened when we all got thrust to virtual is, and people can sit at home and watch 6 to 10 services in less than an hour. They just click on, click off, click on, click off, and never sit through an entire sermon. So now when they finally are sitting under their pastor, they're in their mind, you taking too long, right? Those things burden me, man, because we know with shepherds' hearts, you know, there's always wolves lurking, right? There's always a wolf trying to devour the sheep. And it's a burden of mine. It's a burden when you have youth who are on fire for the Lord, but their parents aren't, right? That's a burden for me because you want to see the multi-generation of the churches, man. You want to see that. And as I've gotten older, I'll be 47 next month on the 16th. The one thing, man, that I've come to appreciate that I years ago would not have publicly acknowledged is, man, I love the Black church, flaws and all, right? I used to always try to say, man, is this one church? We're not the Black church. It's the Black church, bro, right? We didn't name ourselves, right? We didn't name ourselves a Black church, but slavery and segregation created the Black church. But the fact of the matter, man, I love the way we do church. I love the music. I love us being loud. I love the way we preach. I love the call and response, right? I love that. I love coming together, man, and seeing people that I hadn't seen throughout the week, man. I love just that fellowship, that camaraderie. I love all that. I love seeing another Black pastor and the way we greet each other, right? We could be at a conference. Jay and I went to a conference together years ago. You don't have to even know each other, man, but there is a kindred spirit about yourself when you're in the room with others, because you know there's a part of them that understands the struggle of pastoring, especially as a Black pastor, man. And so I love the Black church. I want more for us. I want us to do things the right way, man. But I love us, and I want us to be proud of who we are, man. Be proud of our heritage, and that burdens me because I feel like, you know, I'm about to get in trouble, but I'm gonna say this. I watch how we as Black congregants will sit under a white pastor with no apologies, but it doesn't go the other way, right? But we almost have to change the way our style of preaching, our style of church to accommodate versus us fully embracing who we are, man, right? Black church has many denominations and we have different styles of preaching, right? The same Bible, the same Jesus, the same heaven, man, but our approach is different. And we shouldn't be apologetic about that. And it burdens me when I'm around other pastors who, you know, they're trying their best, man, to hit that algorithm. They're trying their best to pack out those chairs, and they're changing their styles to do it. And they're not authentic anymore, right? Because they're trying to, right? They see a clip of somebody, they're trying to be that person. Versus, man, I'm a believer. If you preach the Bible, people will respond. And so that's a burden of mine that I want, because I didn't understand my Pastor Walker, the way he dealt with us, and felt like he could have done more for us. I understand better now that I'm pastoring, right? We have a younger generation of preachers, man, they didn't go through what we went through, man, right? So it does burden me when I think about that, man, but I love us as a church. So look, I want to go back to something that Az brought up, and I want us to kind of, I want Az to kind of expound upon this. When you're talking about just young Black men, young Black boys, right? And looking at in that manner. I had the privilege this past Friday of. Go ahead, B. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I want to before you do that, I want to hit on
go ahead, bro.
Something that you just said about how you love the church, and so I want to ask this question: are we suffering? Are we suffering from PTSD because we've been traumatized? What kind of trauma did pastors endure as we went through COVID and could not enjoy all of those things that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about the call and response, when you talk about the camaraderie, when you talk about that feel of just being in the building, what kind of PTSD did we endure that we did not get treatment for
Yes, sir.
when we had to go without that and still provide pastoral care to people who were looking for a word? I just wanted to kind of throw that out there because
Yeah.
it really hit me, because and it goes back to that whole mental health question that we talked about just a moment ago. And we're suffering and probably pressed our way through it, moved on, but never dealt with the
Correct.
trauma of what that caused when we had to go through that, when COVID made us have to do it.
Correct. Let's stay right there, man. Go ahead, Ro. I love that.
Man, I think, man, what I would like to use to answer that, Bernard, is you remember when when they were rebuilding the foundation to the temple?
Yeah.
And so we have a group, what you're saying, Bernard, that they remember what church used to be, and we're longing for that. You know what I'm saying? So for me, God convicted me a couple of weeks ago, and I stood up in front of the church and said it, man. I had got so used to quick church in COVID.
Yes. My God. No, seriously, I just dealt with this same thing. My God.
I had gotten so used to quick church, man, that I was systematic, man. Like, I need to be up at 10:30. I need to be down by 11. We need to be walking out the door by 11:10, because in my head, I'm like, man, people done got used to short church. And Lady Rogers, I give her credit for that, man. She was like, baby, we got to take our time.
My God.
She's like, we do all that preaching, we do all that ministering, but then we're rushing at the end of worship when what we presented the people is the opportunity for the people to come. So for me, Bernard, my PTSD was, man, we got to be out of church by 11:15.
Yeah.
And I would get aggravated in church if I felt like we was going too long.
Yes, sir,
and
man.
So I had to tell the congregants, we're not going to rush God. Now, we ain't trying to be here all day what we once used to be, but we got to get to a place, man, where we're leaving a space, man, because people are showing up hurting. People are showing up with some real life issues. And just because I got comfortable with being back on my chair by 11:30 every Sunday is a disservice to the body of Christ. And so that, I think that's where I struggle, man. And then I also struggle with, and this is where I stop with that, man, I really want to go back to the day, man, where it's just intimate in-house, but because there are so many people that we are reaching with this new platform, that you're kind of in a catch-22. So that's what I would say coming out of COVID has done for me from a PTSD standpoint.
Let me just jump in real quickly for anybody else jump in. So, man, I see you, Jay. When you just said, Ro, man, thank you for being transparent, brother, because my wife, like Lady Rogers, man, that's why they're friends, right? That's been my battle. Seriously, she will tell you that, we would start at 10, be done by 11:05. And then, service was going a little bit longer. Like, we're not there all day either, man. But I would finish preaching and sit down and literally look at my watch, and my whole spirit would change. I would become very frustrated, right? And I'm not preaching for a whole hour, right? But I was trying to get us out of there. No one's complaining about it but me. But it would change everything, and just not recognizing and realizing what it is, and thinking about that PTSD, right? I had an opportunity, man. Shout out to moderator Chris Burney. He allowed me to come in for the Old West Primitive Baptist Association a couple of Fridays ago, man, and he had me in a room full of all pastors, talking to them about it's about ministry, about rebranding, about releasing, and things of that nature. And when we had an open conversation, and I shared with them, that we, for 2.5 years, some of us, we were preaching to a camera and nobody in the sanctuary, right? Ro was doing it from his house, right? And then people started coming in, however we brought them back in, whether it's through phases or all together. But I told them, I said, man, I struggle when people started coming back in, because you go from being call and response to nobody there, right? So you're used to it. So they coming back in, and I had forgotten how to preach to people. And it was a little nerve-wracking for me, because you just didn't know. Here's what liberated me. we brought our people back in through 3 phases, right? 3 group phase. I brought the leaders back first, and then I brought back a different group, and my plan was to bring the seasoned saints back in that third and final phase. So when I brought back the leaders, we had a virtual fellowship with our seasoned saints, and on there, Miss Susan Young Lee, whom I love, God knows I do, she made a comment. She said 2 things to me that was so profound that I hold fast to this day. She said, number one, Pastor, I know you love the text and I appreciate you communicating. She said, but I'm retired and I live alone. Now she's raising her granddaughter. She said, a phone call would mean a lot to me. Just somebody calling so I can hear somebody else's voice. And the second thing she said is, Pastor, we want to come back to church. I was trying my best to protect them from coming back too soon. What I didn't appreciate was that their generation is used to being in the building. And so the more I was trying to keep the church together through being virtual and camera, they felt further and further removed because they weren't raised outside of the building, right? And so we bring them back in, they come back excited to be back in the building because, they've been out for a long time. But we as the pastors, we've been there every week preaching. And so you never had, at least I know I did, I never had a week or 2 off just to kind of prepare for. You just brought them all back in there. And the truth of the matter, man, is when things started getting really, really high and we're back in full worship, I found myself struggling because, and it wasn't I didn't love the people, is that I just never had a mental break. And so B, you're right, man, where it's because for some of us, the 5 of us at least, we try very hard to pastor the people God entrusts to us. And so we worked hard together, make sure we were loving on our people. But no one told me, I'll say, Pastor, take a break. Now, my leaders started doing that. But as far as other pastors, right, we were all just trying to stay afloat in that regard. And so, man, I think you're right about the PTSD, man. I really, really do. And I think there are pastors who still deal with it now. And it leads to anger and rage and resentment and bitterness, right, and frustration. Because the people don't see it the way you see it, and they never will. But also because although they were watching virtually, they still had a disconnect, then a reconnect. We never did. Go ahead, Jay.
No, man, that's great. This is all running together. I want to just say something real quick about,
please, bro,
the service. I think, man, God, I don't think God is upset, with the length of our services. I think we did. I know, Rob, man, you talked about this. I think we did cut some fat. There were a lot of things that we were doing in our worship experience that were kind of unnecessary.
Correct.
And I think, man, just as long, I don't think it's about the length of time of your service. I think it's about the substance. What is actually going on within that service.
That's good.
You know what I'm saying? I think, if youth are being ministered to, if people are getting what they need at the altar, if they're getting the word, if they're getting fellowship, if they're getting hugs. So it's about what's actually going on in the experience. But I wanted the man to say this, man. I think also this was another burden on me, is that, man, I just self-care, man, that I be in a good place as a man. Because, man, when you're toxic, you are carrying something that can kill somebody else. So, man, I think it's so important for us to be in a healthy place, spiritually, psychologically, because again, man, there's a stat that I read that said that 90% of Black people have admitted to using religion as a coping mechanism. So for you guys, man, to bring up that whole mental health piece, man, is vitally important. And I'm proud to be able to say tonight on this platform, man, that I have a therapist that I go and talk to. And so I am not crazy. You are crazy if you don't go.
Come on now. Come on now.
You know what I'm saying? So no, man, I want to make sure that I push that, man, because again, we gotta create a different narrative, I think, as Black men, when it comes to that, man, because there are a lot of brothers that we run into all the time. They're not in a good place, man. So that book I got by Courtney B. Vance about the Invisible Eight, he wrote it along with his therapist. And that book, the gist of that book is about how do we begin to uplift and empower Black men in a world that refuses to see their humanity? Rose just talked about that. How, you know, white guys can just come out and go off, but if we do it, we mean, we mad, we angry, man. So there are some things that we're not afforded to do. So again, I wanted to be able to say that. And also in 2019, I think I said this on another show, in 2019, bro, the second leading cause of death for Black men ages 15 to 24 was suicide. And this was actually before the pandemic. So they said that 60% of girls will attempt, but Black boys are more successful. And so, man, I got 3 Black boys. I got 3 Black sons. And so, man, I am trying to make sure that I don't wound them. That I affirm them and that they know that they are enough. You know, that I am proud of them. I tell them that as often as I can. I try to affirm them, man, you know, regardless of what they're doing right now in life. And I think, you know, we got to make sure that we are spending that time, man, with our households. I got a chance to I got a chance to attend the E.K. Bailey preaching conference this year back in July. And we was in a session with Philip Porter, man, one of my preaching heroes. And he said that your members don't bear your last name, but your wife and kids do.
My God.
You know what I'm saying? So, man, I think that making sure that we spend that quality time with our kids, man, and with our wives is vitally important, because you can get lost in the shuffle, man, with this, with the church. You can get lost in it. So I think just having that balance, man, of knowing. And he spent a lot of time talking about how Jesus stepped away from there were people that had needs that they get that were unmet. You know, man. And so listen, man. You know, we can't fix all this stuff, bro. You know, like I think I was talking about, you know, this house that our church purchased, man. I don't know. That may not be my responsibility. That may be for the next pastor. So I think, again, man, just knowing. When you've had enough, and when you've had enough to stop, pause, get away, and then come back so you'll be refreshed and you can do what you need to do.
I love that, man. I love that. Let me on the PTSD statement question that B asked. I think it morphs into when Ash mentioned about young Black boys.
Yeah, can I say one thing real quick?
Yes, sir, man.
I didn't answer. So my what is it?
PTSD. Yeah.
My PTSD. So here was mine to go with, bro. My bad, bro. My PTSD was everything that I did during COVID. Don't act like I didn't do anything.
Ooh. Yes, sir.
I had my family up here. I preached to a congregation. I preached to empty pews. I was here while y'all was home.
Come on, man.
Don't act like I didn't. Don't just walk by and tiptoe through the tulips that didn't happen.
Come on. Now.
And so, man, for a lot of us, we was hard in the paint, bro. I mean, I've seen pictures of some of y'all, you know, Roe in his living room. Yeah. You know what I'm saying, man, bro. Me, my wife setting up my cell phone on a communion table, bro. It was horrible.
Yeah.
And man, for some people, bro, that don't mean nothing. Yeah. So that's mine. Like, don't act like you didn't see that now. So don't act like that. You know, we did nothing, because man, we made some major sacrifices, and then when things got, you know, back rolling, we just kind of moved right along.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So again, just acknowledging that you saw what I did. Let me go on. Let me stop, man. Y'all go ahead. But next point, bro.
I'm glad you said that, right? Because Gary Chapman has a book called The 5 Love Languages, right? And we always think about that book in the vein of marriage. If you look at it from a ministerial standpoint, pastors also need affirmation, right? You want the members to affirm that they appreciate you, that they saw what you did. And you're right, man. Like there was no blueprint to how to do it, right? We were trying our best. I mean, I remember one night watching Ash do Bible study while in his police car, right? Literally while he was in the car, I'm looking, he's teaching, I'm looking behind him, at the back seat of the car, right? But that should also tell you there were people that were reaching out to him from outside of Tallahassee, outside of Florida, who were watching his Bible study, who had never been exposed to his ministry until he went live, right? So there were a lot of benefits, but there was also some burdens, man, because right, technology don't always cooperate with you, right? And so you're trying your best to make sure everything working out. And that one time, right, that one time you didn't unmute, or the one time the sound wasn't good, that backlash, right? And so it is that. But the PTSD question that B asks and was asked me earlier about burden about black men and black boys, to me morphs together. And I feel like when this younger generation is exposed to so much violence, until there's not a purging, there's not a removal of that reality. So it becomes a constant battle, right? Ash mentioned earlier talking about Lil Durk and how he basically is right now. I just read today he's now in a federal Miami detention center. I was looking at the description it had on there, and it said release date, and the response was unknown. Right? They're saying he's facing, the death penalty, facing life imprisonment. Right? Dude's like 31 years old, got I think 5 kids. Innocent to proven guilty, of course. But the reality of it all, man, is you're left to wonder. At least I am. What he's being accused of, how much of that was of his own doing, or the pressure to live up to the lyrics that you perform, right? But it's that. But then you go a little bit further than that. Our young men and our young women, right? They relate better to drill music than they do to R&B, right? Than they do sometimes. And so when you think about that, my son, we were on the phone talking, and we were talking about the Lil Durk matter, and he was asking me various questions about extradition and, Daddy, what does this mean? And what does this mean? So on and so forth. Right. And we're talking through it, and I'm listening to him ask questions and make statements in that regard. And, some of these people, some of these rappers that today, I know them because of my kids. I've heard them because of my kids. Listen to my son talk about this and talk about the other rappers. I never knew the genesis of the issues between Quando, Rondo, and Von, for example. So I asked my son. Well, guess what? My son, who's 18, walked me through the whole journey. The whole journey. These guys have made music, millions of dollars, off of a real beef that began off of a feature, began about a female. Now you look at what things are, man, but it's relatability, right? It's the realization that our young men, especially, man, they can relate to this. So now it is the burden to live up to. And so, Ash, from your vantage point, because you brought it up, man, I want to bring you back in on that, because you see it through various vantage points, but you brought it up, man. So I want you just to kind of press further on that, because I think that's critically important to think about it. Just talk a little bit more on that.
And I think while you were sitting there saying that, I kept hearing something in my spirit, was a lot of times our kids are not allowed to be kids. And what I mean by that, our boys, a lot of times, if they're not in a structured family environment, they're not allowed to just be little boys, dude. Just to play how we play. They already little man for when they're coming up, little man. No, he's not little man. Just let him be a child. So it amazes me how, like you just said, over a beef that these guys done had, somebody's been paying them millions of dollars for this trash. I'm just gonna say it just how it is. Yeah, they've been paid well to push this. Why then is this being allowed to be pushed on our children? Why is this playing? Because you are what you eat. You are what you sitting there. You eat what you sitting there looking at. You listen to, and that's for all of us. I had a conversation one time. I said certain things. Don't get me wrong. Certain music has always been around, from the raunchy stuff to some of this other stuff, but a lot of that was fringe stuff. It was out. It was kind of out. You could get it, but it wasn't like mainstream. If you look at it, stuff now, this junk now is like, this is the mainstream stuff. You got to look for things of quality. You know what I'm saying? Now, you know, with the music, you know, you got to be careful. You know, who are your daughters imitating? Who they looking at on television? What used to be in the strip clubs now is now all of a sudden now just, you know, it's Main Street now, and it only seems to be happening for our kids. You know what I'm saying? The way we ingest it and then turn around and put it back out, we emulate something that's gonna lead nowhere. This drill music ain't gonna lead but nowhere, but more folks dead or you going to prison.
Yes, sir.
You see what I'm saying? And trying to get these young men to see this before they get to this point, before they be in the back of my car, before they head into prison. Because see, once you get to prison, they don't issue you don't get no pistol in prison.
Yes, sir.
And most of these, cats can't throw hands for nothing. But when you get down that road, it's a whole different story now. You see what I'm saying? But that part ain't being told. And that's the burden that you sit there and see, because I see from the law enforcement vantage point of this is that you know, and I say this, and I get tired of hearing the same thing, young black male. I get tired of it. You know, I'm talking about things that used to didn't happen. You didn't have no shooting during day. Oh, you got shooting during daytime now. It don't make no difference what time it is now.
Yeah, bro.
You know, they just had people do a home invasion and they catch them they go on the Whataburger to go eat. Just did a home invasion, a robbery. Shoot, and they had Whataburger. Like it's nothing. But we as a church then, because we done got to the point where if we're not careful, we have no connection with that demographic. We have no connection with them. You see what I'm saying? We had no connection with them. And like you said, we went through COVID and everything else and certain things that we had to deal with. But a lot of times the first church they go into is when they have to go to the funeral of one of their partners. And then we sitting there as church folk looking like, what these jokers got on? And you have to tell them, no. These kids didn't grow up in no Sunday school.
Come on, man.
These kids don't know nothing about no whatever our organization. Ours is YPWW. They know nothing about this stuff here. They don't know nothing. If because we have walked away as a community, have walked away from the church, and only, like you said, showing up only on the church. I think Julius made it say we only show up to church when there's some problems.
Yeah.
When there's some problems. Now people, everybody in the community know who the pastor is now. We need to talk to Pastor McGee. Need to talk to Pastor Ad. Need to talk to Pastor Hutz. You need some help on this here. Can we use your facilities? Can we do all that? Now everybody knows when it's time for the funeral. But you left us. You left us. You didn't want us involved when you have to bend that tree when it's young.
Yeah.
You got to be able to shape it and mold them. Put something in them while they're young. Because I promise you, when they go to prison and they issue my Bible and everything else, now you like the eunuch. I don't even know what I'm reading. What is this?
Wow, that's good.
You see what I'm saying? And you hate for them the first time they ever see this is when they're going down the road. I have a young man that grew up right outside my church doors and is now doing life in prison for murder. Life in prison. Grew up with my nephew shooting basketball almost every Sunday after church. They right in front of the church. They shoot basketball. He's doing life in prison. He's in prison for life. Maybe 20. Now it's gone. That's it. And you can see that where this nice young man this here, but then things start to move because when they stop wanting, you don't bring him to church. You don't, and he wasn't a member of my church, but I knew he went to church. But when you start letting them start hang out with everybody else, when there's no accountability to that, they keep raise a child in the way they should go, train them up in the way they should go, and have them someplace where they can get around real men in church, real men, not these funny ones, real ones. You see what I'm saying? That can show them what it is, what a husband is, what a provider is, what a protector is, teaching them the ways of like how we came up. And I think what had happened is a lot of times, way we came up, we don't want nobody. All of a sudden now we don't teach ours that way no more. So it's not good anymore. The way you were raised wasn't good. It didn't help. Now, I mean, you know, they got options now. No. There is no option. There is no option. There is no option. It ain't no option till you get grown. There was no option for my kids on a Sunday living in my house that you wasn't going to church, huh? I don't care what you had to turn in. It'll be a turn in after church service over. But you know, now we done got to the point where we get a lack of days ago that we losing a whole nother generation. Who our daughters gonna marry?
Yeah, there it is.
Huh?
There
Who
it
our
is.
daughters gonna marry?
There it is.
When they all locked up.
Yeah.
Huh? Or they out here doing everything else. Who they gonna marry?
Yeah.
Huh? Why other races still teach marriage and we run and joke on teaching about being outside? Huh? What you mean outside? Grandma outside, mama outside, now the daughter outside. Who coming in the door? Who gonna come inside and sit down somewhere?
Come on, man. Come on, man.
Huh?
That's
Y'all
so
not telling
true.
the truth.
Come on, man. It's so true.
Grandma at every concert, and every festival, every what's her name, she ain't got no husband. Mama doing the same thing, daughter right behind her, and we wonder why they keep having babies. There are more baby showers than there are weddings going on in our community. That's a problem, bro.
Problem.
That is a problem.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, and don't get me wrong, the other girl, they've been outside. Them saying the counterparts at the PWIs, they done all kind of stuff. But on graduation, they be showing this. I got proposed to, and our daughter still outside.
Yeah. Jay, you was gonna say something?
Man, I mean, I just think that just bad for us to talk about, man. You know, and really, I'm glad you said it, as because there's nothing wrong with being inside. I think we need to start hashtagging inside with my wife with a cooked meal. She done baked
Put it this
the
way,
cake.
you ain't gonna be ain't no wives. You ain't gonna get no wives on my outside. Well,
Right. Yeah. Ain't nothing is wrong with inside. Nothing is wrong with inside. But no, I wanted to kind of dig a little bit more, man. With where do we go from here? You know,
There you go.
You know, with these type of issues, I think Bernard, I heard you say this once. I think I put in our text group. You know, there was a lot that was going on that I was dealing with at one time. Like, man, and Bernard, I remember you saying, man, just pick one and start there. So I want to just put that on the table, man. Where do we start, man? And you know, anybody can jump in. Where do we start?
Well, I'll jump first, man. Ro, you got something? I saw you reach up. No, I think it starts first with us. Here, what I mean by that is we got to first be honest, right? We got to be honest, man. Like everything that Ash just said needed to be said, but also needs to keep being said, right? There is, if the previous generation, if this generation of young people don't fear God nor respect the church, that means the previous generation, which was their parents, had already started leaving the church, right? And did we see it? Did we care when we saw it? What did we do about it? Right? If that young person comes in there, doesn't know how to dress for church, but they come in there, can we start there? Right? If we think about what that looks like, Jay, you freed me on this, man. Years ago, Jay did two things for me years ago. One was in conversation, one was in display. The first one in conversation was talking about how he didn't put the pressure on his sons to look a certain way when they came to church, right? I wanted my son to be free, man. You know, you bear your dad's name, of which you didn't ask for, man, but you gotta be wearing a suit every Sunday. Lil D come to church with some jeans on, a t-shirt, jeans on, and a polo, jeans on, and a hoodie. But I'm glad he's coming to church still, even in college, right? I'm happy he's still coming and you know, feeling the need to be there. He's going to Bible study with the team chaplain, not because I told him to, it's because he feels compelled. I'm grateful for that, man. But I also realized the impact. Second thing that Jay did was, and then you started doing it too, Ro, is Jay started using his sons to run his sound ministry, right? Giving them something to be involved in. I started doing that with my son and my nephews, man. Right? Instead of them forcing them to be what the church expects them to be as a pastor's kids, let's find something here you want to do that you enjoy doing. It may not be singing or ushering. And so my son went up there one time to help out, never came back down, but he thrives up there. So does my nephews. And so it's just being honest, man. Honest on where we fail, but also being honest on what we don't know. And I feel one of the challenges that we have and the burdens that we have is there's so much competition amongst black clergy until we can't even work through a strategy of solution because we can't even get past who gets credit. We can't get past who's going to host it. We can't get past those type of things. And so that becomes 3 meetings before we can start get to the solution of things. And so what's next, man, is I believe if the Lord has blessed the 5 of us as genuine brothers, genuine love for each other, that we can, start having a conversation. It could be something as simple as, we're convening a group of young men in a room and just having an honest conversation. Because here's the reality. You can't convince me that these young brothers don't want to feel loved and feel needed and be seen. You can't convince me that ain't true, right? Now, they may have never experienced this, but you can't convince me. I try my best to go to every one of my youth events at least one time. Baseball game, football game, whatever it may be. You'll be amazed. Y'all know this, man. When they see the pastor show up, when you tell them I'm coming to your game, one of your games, and you pop up at a Pop Warner game or a flag football game, they see you. Everything changes because they hold you in a regard, right? They want to be seen. And so I think, man, it's transferring this conversation, right, to that setting. But let me say this. I feel I need to say this, especially to the mamas who are raising sons. If you want to bring your sons to a conversation like this, you let us have a conversation with your boys without you hovering, right? Mama, you can't do it all. God bless you for what you are doing, but at some point you got to allow us to play a role of accountability if that's what you want. You can't bring them to us only when they done messed up. Now you want us to scold your kids, right? What does that look like? And so, Jay, it is. I believe the 4 of you are doing great work for ministry and for the kingdom of God. You're preaching right, you're teaching right, you're living right. You are available. So keep doing that. Right, keep doing that. Keep engaging your children, man, in those conversations. Right, give them voice, give them audience. There's a quote that says, "Listen with the intent to understand, not with the intent to respond." Right. So engaging our kids and finding out how they view the world, finding out what the pressure points for them are. Right, because it's a whole lot different, man. It's a whole lot different. When somebody didn't like us when we were growing up, man, it's like, man, whatever, I don't care. Now it affects their mental. And so it's allowing for that. What I think next, man, even without us, is within our churches, right? I'm feeling compelled at my church, man, just to convene my young people in a room and just having a conversation, man, allowing them to be able to openly talk and share and be liberated, man, by just what they're dealing with, right? You realize some of your young people, man, been molested by family members and no one's talked about it. No one's allowed them to talk about it, right? That's the dark secret. Now you know that uncle got ways about himself. Nobody want to talk about it. I deal with that at my church, right? So now you done left your child at grandma's house. Don't your uncle come by there every day and you hope he don't touch that child. Then you come pick up that child later that day and that child real quiet and really emotional, but you don't want to talk about that, right? Usually get over it. I deal with that as a pastor. I deal with that mother who got multiple kids by multiple men and none of them helping you out, right? It's those realities. And those young people who being told you'll never amount to anything. Those are the things that we deal with, man, in the black church, right? Well, sometimes you may literally be you may be the one giving them the grocery card to eat that week, along with trying to feed them through the word of God. And so I commend you, brothers, man, because people will never know what that looks like. We go home carrying the weight of the sheep that we protect, right? And so I want to first say, don't think that you're not doing enough, because you are, or you are. We can always do more, absolutely, but you're doing it, man. And so keep doing what you're doing. Let's do that. We could do more by allowing more conversation with our young people at our church. Absolutely, man. But the work that you guys have done to this point, I commend you guys, man, because I know your hearts. And I want to just publicly tell the 4 of you, man, that I'm proud of you and I'm grateful for what you guys are doing, man. So don't feel like you're not doing enough already. It's what we're realizing, man, is the problem is bigger than our congregation, right? So we want to do more and we have a desire to do more. But let me first say what you are doing, hats off.
Derek, I'm gonna jump in, man, right there. And I'm gonna piggyback off of something Jay told me back in 2018. In 2018, man, I was going to preach ecumenical service at Bethel AME Church. And I called Jay tripping, man. I was like, man, Jay, man, dude, I'm so scared. I'm so nervous. And I'm using that to say, if we gonna really make impact, we gotta continue to be authentically who we are, right? I'm Ro. Y'all know me. I ain't changing. Jay is Jay. He ain't changing. Derek, you who you are, Ash and B, y'all are who y'all are. And I think that's what helps us in our congregations. You know, I'm not trying to be Bible based. I ain't trying to be New Jay. I ain't trying to be the Net Church. I ain't trying to be Arnett. I'm just trying to be OJ. And realizing that for me, man, I try to touch my young people every Sunday. And I touch them in a way that ain't preachy. You know, I walk up to them, what's up, man? How y'all doing? You know, high school, whatever. You know what I'm saying? And just having a casual conversation. And when they come up to me, they like, hey, Pastor, you know, it's not, we ain't got to be so starchy with this generation, man. I think that's key. And the other thing, Jay said this one time, man, we got to stop making church spooky. You know, we got to make it where, you know, when they come to church, they ain't scared because they're seeing stuff and they don't understand. And we're not taking the time to explain to them what's going on. You know, when those kids ask like, hey, why sister so-and-so doing this? Why brother so-and-so? We got to be able to explain that and explain y'all may not operate like that in church, but be who you are. And the other thing that I did that's helping our church, man, I dropped that whole thing about they had to be members to serve at the church. And I just let them come and let them be kids and let them do it the way they do it. And one of the best things I think that has helped us, man, is connected with this generation, man, is our youth Sunday is third Sunday. And so I move the adults out of the sanctuary and give the kids and the youth workers the sanctuary for them to prepare for Sunday, for them to get used to what it is and how to do this and how to do that. And I make sure that our ushers are teaching them the responsibility of usher, our choir is teaching them and getting them to understand why they sing, you know, helping them with scripture, helping them with prayer, and letting them do it their way. And one of the things I told our team was, man, if them kids mess up on Sunday morning when they having their service, that's fine with me. You know, the sound may not be there. It may not be quality, but let them kids be kids and let them do it because they want to do it. And so I think that's really what's helping OJ with trying to reach and sustain our young people.
We're at that point of final words, man. I want to respect the time, so let's go around. We'll start with you, Jay, man. Anything you want to say to the people?
Well, man, I think I'll close, man. Since you know, I think youth and black men has been the topic. So of course, y'all know I got a quote.
Yes, sir,
so,
bro.
Yeah, you're born looking like your parents, but you die looking like your decisions. So, man, I want to take this moment just to encourage, you know, young man. My son just came in. Look, man, look, bro. This is what's up, everybody. That's Jalen, y'all.
Jay? Look at him.
So you go? Okay. Yeah. So be careful of the decision that you make. I also want to say this, man, that growing up, black boys are told to, I think Ash just said something that, look at Lil Man. And we take pride in a young boy having grown men qualities at 8, at 12, at 15. And so we got to reteach our community that ain't cool. That's going to be trauma for him 10 years later because he missed his childhood. So I tell my boys, look, I don't expect for you to make the decision that I make at 49. I'm 49, you 22, be 22. You know what I'm saying? So I think, man, just to free them up, man, but they're told to be strong and man up, don't be weak, don't cry. And so they're not given, I think, a chance to express themselves. And so, and when you think about that music, man, these cats are, they expressing themselves. You know, I mean, you know, So they're not given a chance to do that. And so it ends up turning inward. And that's the smoking, that's the drinking, that's the acting out on somebody else. And so I'll close with that, man. But I also want to say this, that, we are committed, and I guess we'll talk about it, once we off this call, off this show tonight, man, about something that we can do together to try, man, and reach this generation. I think we can do it.
I love that. Ro, you next, man. You driving too, brother, so let's be careful.
No, man, I'm being chauffeured, man. My hands ain't on the wheel, bro.
Praise the Lord. How fast is she driving, though, brother? I mean, my Lord. Jesus.
Lord, listen, the Lord done
Lord,
twisted
keep
me.
him. Lord, keep him. My Lord.
What I say, man, is my final word to our young people, both male and female, is, man, it's okay to deal with your emotions now. And I think we've got to learn how to allow them to deal with them and help them through it. Because, Jay, you were saying that, man. Y'all remember, man, growing up, man, we were taught not to cry, not to show any emotions. That ain't what men do. And so as Jay said, man, they are now channeling that anger in a unhealthy situation. And so deal with our mental, seek therapy if you need it, and teach them that it's okay. And continue to do ministry how God is leading us, man, to do ministry. And I want to echo what Derek said earlier, man. All of y'all are doing phenomenal jobs. And we just got to keep uniquely being ourselves. And as Jay said, man, I'm looking forward to that conversation once we get off this call.
I love that. Ash, on you, bro.
I just want to say one thing. I'm gonna steal this saying. It's all right to be inside. God bless y'all. Have a good night.
There he is, brother. B, is on you, bro.
So I think what I want to do, and I hate to kind of I want to give this example. I want to talk about this experience, what I think, and kind of ties this up. I was talking about our Black men. I'm talking about that PTSD, talking about that mental health aspect. And Julius was there when I had to preach the eulogy for my godson who was killed in gun violence. That was probably the hardest sermon I ever preached in my life. And as I stood there and looked out over the people who were there, it was packed. I'm talking about standing room only, and all of them were young people. And I looked at them as we drove up. I looked at how they were dressed. I looked at how they were coming. And so we talk about it, but I think what we've done is we're not prepared for the taste that we've created our children, or we've shaped our children to have. And here's what I mean by that. Because we wanted to raise them differently, and I'm going back to something Ash said, because we felt like we wanted to do them differently than what was done with us, we've now raised a generation of children who don't know God. And I'm not talking specifically about us and our households, because we're trying to raise our children up in that. I'm talking in general. There's a generation that don't know God. And so as a result, they don't have that to fall back on. And so now when they're dealing with these problems that come up in life, they don't know how to deal with them because they don't have it. And we've created that taste because we've trained them, or they've caught it watching it on YouTube or going on TikTok or whatever, and they've caught it. Let me get this little snippet. And so now what they're looking for, when they're looking for a place to come, when they're looking for a place to be able to be spiritually fed, they're looking for what they saw on those platforms, not realizing that soundbite, Derek, as you mentioned a little while ago, is not all that it is. And they don't want to sit under sound doctrine. They don't want to sit under having the truth told to them, because I can go somewhere else where it's going to be something I can kind of run in and get, or I can feel good about it. And my wife and I were talking this morning, is that sometimes these messages aren't feel-good messages. The messages that we have to stand and preach aren't ones that are going to make them shout, aren't ones that when they leave, they're going to feel like, oh man, I got a word today. And that's what they're looking for. They want to come and somebody tell them you're going to be prosperous in this and you're going to do that. Sometimes, no, you ain't living right. Sometimes, no, you got to fix some things. And so we've shaped them. And that's what I saw that day when I saw all those children out there. And we're wondering, and what we say, where they mama at? Where they daddy at? Well, why do we not now have that same community that would shape these children? And so that is kind of where I want to come back to. And so what it ends up doing is we have these children who don't have that spiritual foundation. So as a result, they're trying to feel their way through it. And as a result, they're trying to find the love that Christ can give, that we ought to exemplify, to our wives and our children, that they ought to be able to see through the church. And so they're looking for that. And the enemy is finding ways to give them what they're looking for. And now we're fighting hard trying to get them back in. But now what they're used to is a gimmick. And so we find ourselves continuing to have to do gimmicks to try to keep people in, to try to keep them interested, to try to keep them hungry, when what I have found out is that they are hungry. And sometimes we got to back off of those gimmicks and we got to try to give them something, or we got to give them what the word of God says. My wife deals with children on the college level all the time, and we think they don't deal with anything. She's dealing with these children who are sleeping in their cars and who are really searching for something, and they're bouncing around. And this is to Derek's point, to these churches that we think are popular, because when we see it, it's packed from wall to wall, but they're going in and saying they're not getting anything. And so they're not able to survive. They're not able to be able to stand when those things come up against them in life. And I feel like what we have, what that has then created is now a generation that's apathetic. They don't have no interest in anything to do with God, because they don't really understand God. They see God as a genie in a bottle. And if I rub him, I can get the money I want. I can get the job I want. I can get the house I want. I can get the clothes I want. And then when that don't work, they feel like God isn't worth working for. And so what we have to do, and it goes back to Juice's point, we have to continue to be who we are. We got to continue to press hard, but we have to do that with the reality in mind, is that the devil ain't going to take no break. When we get off of this tonight, and when we finish our talking and we're going to go rest and we're going to go try to get ready for tomorrow, the devil ain't stopped now time. He continuing to press. He continuing to find ways. He continuing to come up with schemes and plots and tricks to keep our people under subjection, under the subjection of sin. And so we got to work real hard. I know I kind of talked around some stuff, but it all connects our young Black people, our Black men, our Black women, and talking about our mental state and how we become apathetic. So now they don't see any use for prayer. It does me no good to pray, because I don't ever see a prayer answered. And that's the reality where we find our people. Because if I ain't ever seen a prayer answered, how you going to tell me praying is something I ought to be doing?
My God.
And that's where you're talking about people who are in poverty, who are in the projects, who ain't ever seen nothing. They live in a 2-bedroom apartment in the projects, and it's 10 of them. The food they got, they parsing it down, and they getting a little bit here and a little bit there, and you can't tell me they ain't praying. They praying. But some of it is something that we have to break. And because that thing isn't broken, because they haven't seen God work, they don't see any use for God. That's what, kind of grieves my heart. Because how do you get people to get to the point where they can see the use for God? They can see that they need God in their lives. They can see that God is what's going to change it when we become apathetic, when we've gotten to this point where it appears to us that this religion thing my mama was down with doesn't work for me anymore.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are the Covenant Brothers. We thank you for being a part of tonight's show, our conversation. This is really how we talk regularly. And so the Lord blesses us to bring it to a platform to have an open, honest conversation. We prepare to wrap up. I want to say 2 things to you. Number 1, remember to vote. Election is November the 5th. Please remember to vote. Early voting is open here in the state of Florida where we live. And so please remember to vote. Your vote and your voice are together. And so don't tell me that your vote don't count. Go and cast your vote. Read your ballot, know who's on there, know what they stand for, and vote. Secondly, I want to share to all senior pastors. If you are a senior pastor of a church, I want to make you aware of a vision the Lord gave me that we are bringing on Saturday, December the 14th at our church, Bible-based church, a trauma-informed care conversation entitled, Pastor, Are You Really Doing Okay? God gave me a vision to kind of convene local pastors together. And so my brothers and my sisters, I don't have to know you, but I just need you to be a senior pastor of your congregation. We want to bring you together to really to have a conversation, a confidential conversation on Saturday, December 14th. There's a registration link. Please reach out to me. I'm happy to get that to you. Reach out to our church as well. Happy to get that to you. Need you to register to make sure we have be able to accommodate in that regard. But there is a registration link to ask you a few questions to make sure that you are a senior pastor. This is a confidential conversation on Saturday, December 14th. Bringing my dear friend in, Carolyn Frida King of her company. We're bringing her in to hold this conversation for us. She's come to our church before. I had her come in and speak to the leaders of our church and do a trauma-informed care conversation. Absolutely amazing. She did it for Pastor Jay's church as well. And so I'm bringing her in to lead this conversation. We're hosting it at Bible-based church, but she is our facilitator. I'm so very proud to know her as my friend and as my sister. I completely trust what she's doing. She knows what she's doing. And this conversation is important. As B mentioned about PTSD, right? This is our chance to kind of have a conversation, to create some level of a dialogue and a conversation in that regard. And so, again, I want to invite you to be a part of that. If you're on and you are not a pastor, but you want your pastor to come, please make sure you make them aware of this. Again, it's on Saturday, December 14th at Bible-based church. It'll only be a setting for pastors. And so once you're there, there'll be nobody else in the room, but that there is a plan to provide breakfast at 8:30 a.m. for those who may want to come. And then we'll start right at 9 o'clock. It'll be a 2-hour conversation. We're going to keep it to 2 hours and then get you out of there in a timely manner. This is our chance to kind of have that conversation and openly talk through things that we battle with. And so again, Pastor, are you really doing okay? Right? You're in work mode and you are in succession mode and you're doing well by way of numbers and by way of church gathering, but are you okay? Right? Are you doing okay? The number of pastors dying by suicide is not decreasing. Right? You are performing at a high level and you are meeting people's expectations, but inwardly you're struggling. And so the Lord gave me this vision, bringing us together. Listen, be honest with you, we don't have a desired number of people who are going to show up, right? If it's only 2 people that show up, we're going to proceed in that regard, right? I trust God that whomever comes is supposed to be there. I don't get caught up on we need 50 people or 100 people. Let me also say everything is free, right? So there's nothing on it that requires you to pay anything. We just want you to come and be a part of the conversation, that we may begin to encourage each other and sharpen each other as iron sharpens iron. So again, Saturday, December 14th, I encourage you, my brother, my friend, to be a part of this discussion. Again, this is for senior pastors only. The Lord says to do it for others. We may do that, but right now for senior pastors only. And so I want to encourage you, my brothers, my sisters, to be a part of this conversation. I'm going to put my email on the screen so you will have the email. So if you want to email me, we can get the link to you. I'm also going to be posting on Facebook tomorrow that you may be able to get the registration link in that regard. But we encourage you to be a part of this. I'm grateful that God trusts us to be able to do this. Frida King, my sister, whom I love with my whole heart, I've known her for over 25 years. She knows what she's doing, and God has blessed her company in a major way. And so we're excited about bringing her in to be able to do this for us. And then my prayer is that as a result of the 14, that each pastor who comes will feel the need to bring her to their individual ministries for their leaders as well. Trust me when I tell you, and Jay can attest to this, you will not regret it. That's how good she is. And she's very transparent. She's actually very transparent about her own life and what she's overcome, but she is also able to lead us and facilitate this conversation. So please, brothers and sisters, whether you are male, female, you are white, black, Hispanic, none of that matters to me. If you are a pastor, we want you to be a part of this conversation. There is no judgment. There is no comparison. We want to make sure that we are able to encourage each other and liberate each other in that regard. Again, thank you all for being a part of tonight's show. Thank my brothers for being with us again. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Pastor Derek McGee of Bible-based church. That's Pastor Richard Ash II of the Net Church in Quincy, Florida. That's Dr. Bernard E. Hudson of Arnett Chapel AME Church. That's Pastor Julius Harris of the New Jerusalem Missionary Baptist Church. Off the screen, but still on, Pastor Roosevelt N. Rogers III of the Old Jerusalem Missionary Baptist Church of Havana, Florida. We are the Covenant Brothers. This was our conversation. Thank you for being a part of what God is doing and God continues to do in each one of our lives and our ministries. And we encourage you to keep living for Jesus and do it for real. Have an amazing, amazing night. We thank you all for being a part of it. Bless you all.
Done.